find me afterwards or check the title bar there. But it's all pretty easy to find because everything that I'm going to be looking at can be reached through our project page on Drupal.org. It's just drupal.org/project/commerce. And that is the home for Drupal Commerce. And what Drupal Commerce is a re-implementation of UberCart's feature set on Drupal 7 with the goal of being a Drupal 7 native implementation of e-commerce. Give just a second for these folks. There's probably going to be more people coming in as we speak, but I guess I'll just go from here on out. So we're re-implementing the feature set well, by show of hands, who here has used UberCart on a website already? Most everybody? Good? Okay, so the features that you can think of are things like having an order, having different product types that have attributes and options on them, and then managing the order workflow through conditional actions, having order invoices and all the file downloads, the role promotions. All these features we're targeting with Drupal Commerce as well, because our goal is, in fact, for Drupal Commerce to be on the upgrade path from Drupal 6 with UberCart to Drupal 7 with the Commerce modules. I'm sorry. Wow, this mic is really, it's like picking up my sniffling, and I'm really sorry for that. But we have some really key, I guess, design goals with Drupal Commerce. And not just to re-implement the UberCart feature set, because you could do that just by porting UberCart from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7, which is happening in UberCart's 3.x branch. But because we want it to be Drupal 7 native, we're rethinking the way that we build products and the way that we build product types and orders and how all the data is actually structured in the database and then plugged together on the Drupal site. And the biggest win for us in our development effort has been the introduction of fields in core to Drupal. So I'm sure that everybody here has used CCK, and perhaps most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with Drupal 7 enough to know that CCK has been moved into Drupal core. What that means is we can now define different types of what's called entities. And there are sessions later about this terminology if you need to get it sorted out. But an entity is basically the kernel of what makes a node in Drupal 6. So it's an object that has a type. There can be multiple types of this object. It can have fields attached to it. It can have revisions. All these things sort of make up an entity, and now node is just one type of entity. So is users. So you can add fields to your user profiles in the same way that you add fields to your node types. And so with Drupal Commerce, there's nodes, users, comments, and then we have products, orders, line items. And all these things can have fields attached to them. The display can be managed on these things the same way that everything else is in Drupal. So all of a sudden, if you want to extend your product type or add to maybe add attributes to it like you would in UberCart, you just have to add a field to the product type. If you want to get a new field to show up in the checkout form, I'll demonstrate here that all you have to do is add a new field to your customer profile. And these sorts of activities were next to impossible to accomplish in UberCart because of the way we built the APIs and then used the Forms API or didn't use. So some of these tasks that are really simple now with fields in core are next to impossible in UberCart on Drupal 6. So I'm really excited about, especially about being able to add different fields to addresses, because that feature request came through all the time. And now it's really as simple as just a few clicks, and I'll demonstrate that in just a moment. In addition to using fields in core, we also wanted to follow a strict set of coding and development standards. If you've perused the UberCart code, you know that you might have recognized that it was my first Drupal project, and it was also my first PHP MySQL project, and it was actually my first commercial, I guess, sort of application that people were using to build their businesses on. So you're very brave people who have used UberCart in production sites. It was based on OS Commerce, and so I did have experience hacking on OS Commerce beforehand, but UberCart was our big go, our big push. And at the time, we weren't familiar with all of Drupal's coding standards. You may think that we weren't familiar with inline comments, perhaps, if you've tried to read the code. So what we've done is we said from the get-go with Drupal Commerce, if we're starting with a clean slate, we can make sure that the code is commented. We can make sure that the APIs follow the same naming conventions. So we actually have a set of development standards that includes Drupal's development standards, and then adds to it our own sort of, our own strict policies for the code that gets committed to Drupal Commerce. I'm a lot harder about patches now too. I used to be really soft on patches and just throw something in if it worked. But we're trying to be more like core, Drupal core, in the fact that stuff doesn't get committed unless it's commented and documented and proven to work and not break everything. We aren't quite at the point of requiring simple tests for every patch that comes in, but Drupal Commerce 1.0 will launch with full simple test coverage. And if anybody here just loves writing tests, there are issues in the Drupal Commerce issue queue just waiting for someone to post patches of simple tests. But the coding standards include things like the normal naming conventions and documentation conventions, but also like a standard module directory structure. So every Drupal Commerce module will be structured the same way, and then every module file will be structured the same way, with the same hooks appearing in the same place, the similar APIs all being organized in the same manner. So it's really easy to browse the source to, actually I was able to make assumptions about functions that I couldn't remember if they existed, but I just sort of guessed, because I knew the naming conventions, and it turns out the functions I was looking for were there. So it was sort of a happy surprise, this sort of Drupal Commerce serendipity, I'll call it. Just really changing the way that you write your code and think about maintaining your code has really improved the project. So of course, function and hook naming will all be standard, and so on and so forth. You can actually reach this page through drupalcommerce.org, which is sort of the development hub for the project. And what drupalcommerce.org provides us is primarily a forum for discussing the features before we actually do implementation, and then also for maintaining specifications, so that if you as a developer need to know how a particular system works, theoretically, you should be able to come to drupalcommerce.org and see how the APIs work, how the entities and fields are working and working together or not working together. Additionally, something else that we've done different over UberCard is required dependencies on other other essential Drupal contributed modules. So there's a dependency on the, I'll skip the first one, but rules in the entity API. If you haven't hit up, I guess today's the first session, so you haven't hit up Fago's rules session yet, but I'd recommend it if you're interested. Rules is sort of our conditional actions replacement. On UberCart, you use this conditional actions module to automate your order workflow, to determine when a sales tax applied or when a shipping method should be available. All that stuff will be handled through rules, in addition to modifying prices, so discounts or displaying prices inclusive of VAT. All that stuff's going to go through rules now, and Rules 2 for Drupal 7 is really cool. Fago's done a lot of work on it since Drupal 6, and I'm really excited to be using it. Additionally, we have a core dependency on views. And this one is really important because there are no more, well, essentially no more hard-coded user interfaces in Drupal Commerce. So every administrative list, even the shopping cart block, is a view and can be edited and themed in the normal way that you would edit and theme a view. So what we've done is with Drupal Commerce, there's a lot less custom stuff that you have to know how to modify.